Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending from where you're joining us today. And welcome to this virtual event on creative collaboration in times of crisis, where we'll talk about how creativity can help brands survive and even thrive in these unprecedented times. In this session, we will share some insights from our proprietary COVID-19 consumer community, as well as showcase how creative crowdsourcing can help brands act upon this changing consumer reality. Next to that, we will very excited to share some first results on how we involved our creative crowdsourcing network, eÿeka, in shaping ideas on how brands can prepare for a post-COVID world. Joining us here today are four speakers live from their home offices around the globe. We will start in Belgium with Tom de Rijk, keynote speaker and online research expert, who will host this session. We also have Yuri van den Berg joining us. Yuri is future consumer expert and will share some learnings from our COVID-19 research. And then we'll go to Paris, where Thomas Langela will share the ins and outs of creative crowdsourcing. And last but not least, we'll virtually go to South Africa, where Heather, Research Director at Insights Consulting South Africa, will share the results of our COVID-19 eÿeka contest. So lots of great content ahead. If you have any questions during the session, please use the question pane, which you can find at the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try to answer them after the session. Without further ado, I would like to give the virtual floor to Tom.
Hi. Recently, I read a very interesting article written by a couple of analysts at the Boston Consulting Group. The analysis they made was actually one of the four most recent economic downturns, and they looked at the performance of companies in periods of crisis. When they analyzed those 4 moments of economic downturn, of crisis, they saw actually that there is a group of companies, actually 14%, that succeeds in growing, and growing during a crisis, not only in terms of sales, but also in terms of margin. So what are those 14% of companies doing differently? What are they doing right? Well, they think out of the box. They succeeded in rethinking what they were doing, in reinventing themselves and their business models, thinking out of the box, finding new ways of growing. So this actually shows that in times of crisis, probably creativity is one of the most important skills, not only to survive, but especially to thrive. And of course, creativity was already on a lot of lists of companies, of soft skills to work on. We have seen articles been written by McKinsey in 2019 where they actually demonstrate that companies who are more creative than others grow faster than others and will be more profitable. We have seen this list for 2020 published at the beginning of the year before the whole COVID-19 crisis by LinkedIn Learning, where they put creativity as the #1 soft skill to work on for companies. So I think creativity has always been important, but as it has been stated in a recent Harvard Business Review article as well, in these times, in times of crisis, it's probably even more important than ever before to use our imagination, to use the creativity that is available for us companies to rethink what we're doing and to find new ways of growing. But of course, before we can talk about creativity and where to find creativity, how to apply creativity, we need to talk about the issues that consumers have to deal with right now. And there we have to discuss very briefly our pause, play, fast forward model, our model that you can use as a company to react to the current situation. Pause means listening in, checking in with your consumers. How are they doing? What is their current situation? Trying to understand the context that they are living in today. Play means how can you react in an agile way to that new reality of your customers, of your consumers. And fast forward is how are you going to prepare yourself and your company for a post-corona world? What's your strategy for the near future? But first, of course, before we talk about creativity, we have to talk about what are consumers doing right now? What are they feeling? What are they thinking? So let us go over to Yuri, our future consumer expert, and he will tell you all about the current situation consumers are in. Yuri, give us some insights about consumers and their current situation.
Thanks, Tom. So what we did was actually, as you can see on the slide, we did a global consumer community at first in the first weeks of the lockdown, and actually your model, post, play, fast forward. Of course, these are also the buttons on a remote control, and remote is typically the new consumer reality today, with nearly half of the world's population living in some form of lockdown. That means remote working, remote shopping, remote learning or studying, even remote relaxing with online yoga sessions, and remote relationships, as we saw in this quote on the next slide of an Italian millennial. The only difference is that I cannot go out, but now I can spend my time doing my hobbies. I read a lot, play with my cat, and every Saturday night I have a date on Skype with my boyfriend. So I guess it's bad news for the boyfriend, as he's being replaced by the cat for daily activities, and he's only welcome on Saturday nights. On the next slide, I will summarize a couple of struggles and frictions of consumers today in this lockdown. And it's a bit ironic maybe to use a picture from airports that are currently quite desolated places, but it's a good way to summarize how consumers are feeling. So when it comes to struggles, they have lost many occupations. Some of them even lost their work or temporarily unemployed. They lost time with friends and family they cannot see anymore. But they refound learning new skills, e-learning. They brought their leisure activities online, so digital date nights like the Italian millennial, but also book reading clubs, pub quizzes, birthday parties, dance raves, workouts, and even church masses went online. On the other hand, they're also revaluing offline moments in nature, and they're redefining pleasure, walking and cycling, as sometimes the only allowed activities, gardening even. And retailers have reported a surge in the sales of kitchen knives, luckily in most cases not to arm ourselves, but by losing bars and restaurants, we did rediscover the pleasure of cooking and dining at home, which explains why the sales of bread baking yeast went up with 647% in the United States. We also see it on our socials, so social media, we see a revival of the so-called food porn, and it reinforced the already existing do-it-yourself trend, not for health or sustainability reasons this time, but often out of fear. So people are reducing the risk of getting infected by not going for takeaway foods or only going once a week to grocery stores, or sometimes do it yourself out of necessity. Think of the hairdressers that are closed, so people are dyeing their hairs themselves. We also lost structure. There's no daycare for some of us, no school, no official office hours. So for some of us, weekdays and weekends are merging, but we refound homeschooling, parenting, playing with our kids, and food and drink moments for the moment provide more than usual a structure for our days, like having a beer or coffee online with peers or clients, or the aperitif moment or Skyperative moments with friends and relatives. We are still in need for daily rituals to fight isolation or depression. Some frictions. Healthy fresh food is what we like for our immunity boost, our immunity system. But on the other hand, shelf life is also important because, again, we want to limit the shopping frequency to avoid infections. We lost our freedom and have so many restrictions and limits that we are craving for indulgence and self-rewarding, snacking, for instance. But we're also a bit concerned about our health and weight in this lockdown and post-lockdown. And the newfound freedom and idle time for some people also mean burdens of cleaning your house yourself, preparing meals for the entire family, keeping the kids quiet while constantly in Zoom or team meetings with colleagues, clients, and friends, because no one has an excuse for not showing up anymore. So in these struggles and frictions, what are consumers expecting from brands? And what we see is that they want brands to understand them, to help them, because typically they have different emotions. It's a mix of fears, their own health, but also the health of their parents, grandparents, of uncertainty, economic uncertainty, but also boredom and loneliness. So they expect brands to support them in these challenging times in different ways, depending on the stage of which they're fighting the coronavirus in their own country. So some examples of what brands have done in the past, supporting the most vulnerable with the Red Cross organization. Coca-Cola is using their advertising budgets globally with one global message. We are using this to support the most vulnerable who need it the most, and the health workers and the Red Cross organization. We are in this together. Companies who still had access to alcohol, like liquor and beer companies, Heineken, for instance, but also Beiersdorf, L'Oreal, they started to use the ingredients to provide healthcare workers and hospitals with hand sanitizers because there was a shortage of hand sanitizers. On the next slide, we see some examples of how brands are turning to parents, and actually with the schools closed, it means a lot of extra pressure for home teaching and for keeping the kids busy. So parents of young kids in Germany, they like the Playmobil movie, explaining with animated figures of Playmobil in a very simple language what the virus is all about, what it means for kids, that they should wash their hands, keep social distance, all difficult concepts for kids, but explained in their own language. And in regions with closed nurseries and schools, brands can help with homeschooling, keeping kids entertained. Audible, for instance, made their kids audiobooks for free in 6 different languages across the world. And also on the next slide, we see an example of Dyson. They have created 44 engineering and scientific challenges for children, all using common household products, like how can I make a lava lamp while I'm learning something from science. Research has shown that 6 out of 10 parents in the UK, this is a UK example, want their kids to learn new skills during the lockdown. Another example is Nike, both at the beginning asking people to stay inside and safe to help the world in the end. They also used influencers, but they're also offering the premium Nike Training Club app for free with nearly 200 workouts and yoga classes for all fitness levels, also giving tips for nutrition, sleep, and mental health. And then some last example of Burger King advertising in France, showing the ingredients that people need to buy in grocery stores to make a Whopper themselves at home, clearly understanding the do-it-yourself trend. So looking at these examples, the key in choosing what to do and what not to do as a brand is, of course, reflecting consumers' emotions and frictions. And does it really add relevant value to the current crisis? So to choose wisely, this is a model that we also use for sustainability projects. It's also helpful here. You have to ask yourself, why us? Is what we are trying to do, what we're planning to do, is it aligned and backed with corporate strategy? Is there a very strong and clear link to the DNA of the brand, not just for us, but also for our customers, of course? Do they see the match? Is it relevant for our market? Does it matter to the important markets that matter to us? Is it claimable? Can we be unique in this mission, or at least better than others? Does it fit with our current tone of voice and current communications? Is it engaging? Does it resonate with our workforce? Can they get involved as well in addressing the mission? And is it campaignable? Is there a genuine public interest in the issue, not just with our brand lovers, but with the general audience? So what we saw on TikTok, for instance, were videos with the hashtag quarantine hair seem to be very popular for the moment. But when you keep the 5 factors in mind, it explains why some multinational brands like L'Oreal at this time are choosing to communicate as leaders, with the CEO talking and stating what they're doing to support people, to support communities, while on the next slides, other brands like Bleach in London, a salon and hair dyeing product company, is choosing to help customers with online hair parties and tutorials to dye their hair themselves in their own tone of voice, while still being clever enough to remote their corporate slogan, "Life's a beach, and then you die," which might be quite inappropriate at this moment. Tom.
Yes, Yuri, thank you very much for giving us your insights and the insights from our COVID-19 community. So now we know what consumers are thinking, how they are feeling, and what their current situation is. Now it's time to talk about creativity and how we can take those learnings forward and turn them into new pieces of communication and new solutions for customers and consumers around the globe. The issue is that within companies, and that's what all the articles that I talked about in the beginning also state, that within companies there is creativity, but probably not enough, because big organizations, they are very efficient and very effective. They are like the perfect assembly line to bring products and services to the market. But when it comes to thinking out of the box, it's not always that easy for them. And when we look at the communication that a lot of companies, a lot of brands did in the past couple of weeks, we can clearly see that they are not always that creative, or that they not always succeed in differentiating themselves from one another. I'm going to show you a short clip, which is a compilation of a lot of pieces of advertisement that were sent out into the world in the past couple of weeks. And when you watch closely, you will see that indeed most brands tell us the same, use the same imagery, and there is not a lot of creativity in there. Let's take a look.
When we first opened our doors.
Since 1926.
Since 1978. For 60 years.
For 75 years.
For over 80 years.
In 90 years.
Over 100 years.
Nationwide has been on your side.
Restaurants have always been there for you.
Nissan has been with you through thick and thin.
We will do what we've always done.
Take care of people.
We're people.
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 People. People.
People.
Family.
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 Family. Family.
Family.
Family.
Family.
Families are families.
Families.
Even now. Especially now.
Especially now.
Right now.
Now more than ever.
More than ever.
Today, more than ever.
Today, more than ever.
In times like this.
At times like these.
During these difficult times.
In these troubled times.
Challenging times.
Trying times.
In these times of uncertainty.
During this time of great uncertainty.
During these uncertain times.
During these uncertain times.
In uncertain times.
In uncertain times. Uncertain times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
This unprecedented moment in our history.
It's time of social distancing.
While things have slowed down. As we turn more in.
I think you get the message, and you see that the messages and even the imagery they are using are very, very similar. So if we think a little bit further down the road, and if we think about communication continuing in the next couple of weeks and months, if we think about new solutions, innovations, and services that we as companies, as brands need to bring to the market, it's clear that we probably can use an additional injection of creativity within our companies. So where are we going to find that extra level of creativity? Well, if you look at a population and you take 100 people out of a population, we can see that 90 of them, so 90% of the population, are just spectators or validators, and that's according to a model developed by Forrester Research. And that are typically the normal customers, the normal consumers. That are the people we do research with. That are the people we have in our COVID-19 community. That are the people that gave Yuri the insights that he just talked about. But are they creative? No, they aren't. And we tried. We tried at Insights Consulting in the last 20 years to do kind of innovation exercises, ideation exercises with normal consumers. And yes, they will bring us from time to time a nice idea, but they don't do better than what people, professionals within organizations would bring. They are the ones who bring us the stories from their lives. They are the ones who bring us the insights. They are the ones who tell us what the problems are that with creativity we should find solutions for. They are not the creative people themselves. Then, within that same population, we have the 9%, and they are curators. Typically, these are people within organizations. This is you. This is people who work in branding, in communication, in marketing, in innovation, in customer experience. They are very good at coming up with a couple of solutions themselves, a couple of ideas themselves, but what they are especially good at is recognizing a problem, recognizing a great idea for that problem, bringing the two together and executing that, making it better, making it ready for the market. But we all know when we do ideation sessions ourselves within our organizations that we get to some ideas, but we always are left behind at the end of such an ideation session with a kind of unsatisfied feeling. We always have the feeling that there is more in there, that there are more ideas possible, that there is more out of the box thinking possible. And that's logic, because like it's being said in this famous quote from a Lego executive, more than 99% of the smartest, or let's say most creative people in the world don't work for you. So probably if we want to find that kind of additional injection of creativity, we need to look for it outside of the company walls and even outside of the partnerships we have with like innovation agencies and creative agencies. We need to think of crowdsourcing new ideas. Crowdsourcing new ideas among the creative 1% of the population. So there is 1% in every population that is truly creative, who have that kind of creative skill, that creative kind of gene in their DNA, and they can literally think out of the box. So how can we work together with that creative 1%? How can we reach out to the creative 1% in the population? Well, that's what I want to talk about with Thomas, who is in Paris, who is working in our Paris office and who is leading the team that works with our creative community, our eÿeka community, or in other words, a community of those creative 1%ers that are out there in the world. So Thomas, can you tell us a little bit more about the creative eÿeka community? How big is that community? Who are they? Can you tell us a bit more?
Thank you, Tom. So eÿeka, if you go on eÿeka.com, that's a website where you will see a lot of creative contests that are launched. We exist since 2010. We have gathered a total of 400,000 people who created an account and joined the community, the eÿeka community. That's a global community. We have 167 countries represented. And so over the last 10 years, we've launched more than 1,000 contests on eÿeka, which in the end represent 140,000 ideas. So that's a lot of ideas that have been submitted by individuals who participated in the creative challenge that we have on eÿeka. And if we go in the detail of who these people are. They are mostly people who are millennials between 25 and 35 years old. What is important is that that's a community that is alive, like people come and go, and it's automatically like renew by this flow of people coming in and coming out from the community. So it evolves. In terms of age, as I said, mostly millennials, because those people are students or young professionals starting their career as a creative in an agency or in a company. And what they like to do during their spare time is to go on eÿeka, find creative challenge, practice their skills, get more experience working on real challenge provided by brands. We also have other age categories, and sometimes you see very different profile on eÿeka. You can have, like, we have this example of a person working in a pharmacy, and after his day, when he come home, what he likes to do is a creative person, but he's not working in a creative industry. He's not working in an agency, or is not a creative people, but when he come back from work, what he likes to do is participate on the eÿeka challenge, because this is where he can practice his skills and really express his own creativity on eÿeka. So that's about those people, who they are. And in terms of skills, given the variety of people we have, the members of the eÿeka community, they have very different types of skills. Some people are good at communication, for example, designing a poster. Some others are more like focus on packaging design. Some are more interested into like create a story and tell it through a storyboard or illustrated script. So really different types of skills that makes the whole eÿeka community very interesting to work on with.
Very interesting. So it are really those people who love to be creative and who have a very specific creative skill. So truly the creative 1%. I've always taught, and we are taught, that when you need to find a solution for a problem, you need to understand the context very deeply. You even need that experience in that particular category or industry. So we almost assume that somebody who works for years and years in a particular company, in a particular industry, would be better at coming up with creative solutions than somebody who is inexperienced. On the other hand, we also read a lot of articles around the importance of diversity when it comes to creativity, that you need a diverse group of people in order to really be able to think out of the box. Is it that then that the eÿeka community has the diversity, Thomas? Is that what makes it so specific, and is actually that diversity and the creativity of the community outperforming the experienced people within companies when it comes to ideation? Is that the power of the community, diversity?
Yeah, that's a good point that you make, Tom. Indeed, that's the starting point of eÿeka. And when clients come to us, we should really start by the idea of great ideas come from everywhere. We can have anybody, as long as you give a clear brief to participants. People from anywhere on the globe should be able to create a good idea. And we have a lot of stories in our history showing that, for example, someone who's based in France will be able to create an idea for a company working on a very specific product, for example, baby product in China, for instance. What is important is that you give all clear information to participants, so that diversity of people and coming from the outside will be able to submit an idea that is relevant to your challenge. And if I can explain a bit the mechanic on the next slide, in a few points, basically, contest on eÿeka challenges. The online community is open. Anyone can create an account and join the eÿeka community and participate in a challenge that is live on a website. That's a public website. What is important for the community is that they feel the competition is engaging. When they read the challenge, it must be fun, not something to with a lot of constraint. For instance, we try to make it very interesting for them and appealing in a sense that it's something achievable for them. It's a simple task that they can do at home during their spare time, and they can assess that they have chances of winning, or at least doing something interesting for them because they like the challenge. And eÿeka is also for them an opportunity to connect with real brands. They really see it as a great chance to inspire some of the brands they know, but also some of the brands they probably don't know because they are from different markets. But what's interesting for them is this collaboration with the brands and the chance of being able to inspire them. And that's kind of the mission of people who are engaged in the eÿeka community. And we've tried, when the lockdown has started and when we saw the first effect of the pandemic, we wanted to build on that mission of eÿeka providing challenge for participants to inspire brands. And we asked, we did a big study to see what would be the impact of the pandemic on the eÿeka website. What we've seen is that the impact was positive. We've seen the traffic on the eÿeka website have increased, and the participation of in contests. So those people who go on eÿeka website have been more active in reading the brief and submitting ideas. And we will go more in the detail in the end with Heather on what types of challenges they have completed during this time. So yeah, diversity was really important, and that was a good time to challenge the community.
I think it's nice to see that not only companies are more than ever in need for creativity in these times of crisis, but that also the creative community is more active than ever before. So that's a very nice match, I think. So it's very clear, I think, right now who those creative 1%ers are, what drives actually those people in our eÿeka community, and how creativity works. It's a matter of diversity meets the kind of specific skills that they have. Can you tell us a little bit more, Thomas, about the very specific process that you follow when organizing such a contest? How does that work?
Yes, so it is really important to have a creative crowdsourcing implemented in a full protocol. We always start from an insightful brief. So we start from your consumer insights to develop a brief for the community that will be a creative challenge. We launch the competition, and when the competition is live, we activate the different segments of our community to make sure people who are interested participate in your challenge. And at the end of the competition, when we have received all the ideas, what is really important is to work on the transformation and implementation of the ideas. So this is where you can put other blocks in the protocol, other market research blocks to transform. It can be in a form of workshop, but there are other solutions as well. And then evaluate those concepts that you have co-created from the creative ideas, crowdsourced ideas, and launch them eventually in as a product or as a campaign.
Yeah, very clear. And I think what I like about the concept is that it's not completely outsourcing the creative process. It's like bringing additional ideas and sparks of inspiration in, because it all starts with consumer immersion and with having a consumer insights. So we solve a real life problem of consumers, which is more important than ever before, I think, in these very specific times. But we also give the opportunity to people internally to come up with ideas, like we have always done. We don't kill that, but we add that kind of additional injection of very creative ideas from the 1%ers. So then the internal ideas and the crowdsourced ideas come on one big pile. And then it's about workshopping with those ideas, where again, of course, the creativity and the out-of-the-box thinking of you people working for the brand come in to make the link and to do the matchmaking between the insights and the creative ideas, and to start to work with the ideas, both the internal and the crowdsourced ideas, and to turn them into new concepts for communication and innovation. So that's what I like about it, that it's not completely outsourcing creativity, it's just crowdsourcing an additional injection of creative ideas. Do you have a couple of examples, Thomas?
Another one was on communication with Lenovo. Again, the challenge for Lenovo was to renew their global campaign. They have a tagline, which is smarter technology for all, but they wanted to see how it can be brought to life differently. And they wanted to start from their users in their four bigger markets, which was China, Germany, India, and the US. So we built a community with Lenovo users, so people who are using the Lenovo computers, and trying to get from them insights on what they feel about the brand, what's the brand mission, are they inspired by the actual tagline, and how they could inspire a new campaign. So we built those insights with the Lenovo users, and then we briefed the eÿeka community with a lot of inspiration coming from the online community to develop a brief on which they develop all posters. So this is what you can see on the right part of the slide. Ideas coming from 16 countries that were then inputted into a workshop with Lenovo agency to develop a new global campaign inspired by the insights from Lenovo users and boosted by the creativity of the eÿeka community. So what is important to know on eÿeka and how the solution can be used is that, so I've presented example of product innovation, communication, but it can also work on customer experience. So there is a variety of skills in the community that allows us to work on very different types of challenges. And in the rest of the presentation, we will Heather will show you how diverse the output from the community can be.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I think we now know what consumers have to deal with right now. We know how companies can crowdsource an additional level of creativity, have that injection of creativity into the organization. I think now it's time to show to you what the power can be of creative crowdsourcing in COVID-19 times. So back to Yuri, but also to Heather in our South African office in Johannesburg, who will tell you all about what we did to demonstrate to you what the power of creative crowdsourcing can be in COVID-19 times. So Yuri, can you explain a little bit what we did in terms of creative task, creative briefing based on insights from our COVID-19 community?
Sure, Tom. As you mentioned, we started with summarizing actually the 5 changes in consumer behavior that will probably stick post-corona. And these insights, again, they come from doing qualitative community around the world. The first one is people are re-evaluating life. They are rediscovering hobbies, revaluing family, friends, nature. They might question relationships, as we already saw the stats on the number of divorces in China. They might question work, old habits. As we know, it takes 28 days to change a habit. So most lockdowns are getting beyond that point. Definitely, they are putting more attention to happiness, well-being, treating themselves with more sleep, long hot baths, preparing meals, reading books, do-it-yourself personal care. Secondly, we see that people are craving to get out, to meet people in real life physically, go out with friends to bars, restaurants, concerts, exhibitions, picking up team sports again. So social comes first and will come first, but at first they will be very wary of getting infected or reinfected. So we call this a crowd of enoculophobics. The meaning of that is actually it's a crowd afraid of crowds, a crowd afraid of large groups of people. So that's the new reality as well. Then thirdly, shopping. new customers have been introduced to home deliveries and e-commerce, but for newcomers, the first experience was often negative, with delays, websites not able to handle traffic, time slots not available. But they did see the advantages of less frequent and more planned shopping visits with the lists instead of the typical last-minute store visits. So that might be an extra challenge for some products, impulse products. On the other hand, people hated it when they saw their love brands went out of stock, and the love brands mentioned were Nutella, Heinz, Kellogg's, Coca-Cola Zero, Pringles, Nescafe, Alpro, Pedigree, and in the US, definitely peanut butter. So they will be more aware of keeping a strategic stock of these for when it happens again. We all become a bit more preppers. Fourthly, SOS. Will we be saving our spendings? We will definitely not be spending our savings. We learned how quickly wealth can be damaged by health. So this will have an impact on financial products as well. And in the short term, we will think twice before spending and are postponing more expensive items until we have more certainties about employment. And then lastly, self-sustaining gardening became a mindful activity, and especially with baby boomers, there's also the revival of growing your own vegetables. So self-sustaining communities might get accelerated, but there's also supporting locals, staycations, sometimes forced, but also supporting local farmers, smaller bakeries, butchers, bars, and restaurants again. So Heather, combining these insights on the cautious consumer with the power of creative crowdsourcing, I think you have just finished an awesome eÿeka contest, right?
Yes, Yuri. Hi, everyone. It truly was an awesome competition. I think taking on the insights that you've shared with us now that came from the consumer community, potentially one of the most challenging ones and biggest friction points being that fear of crowds and sort of how are consumers going to get back out there and what can brands do to support that journey. So we took that insight, we took that insight and we put it to our eÿeka community in the form of a challenge. The challenge on the next slide read effectively to this, so helping us imagine what tomorrow will look like, what will the new world look like, what will new normal look like for all of us, what sort of products and services will consumers be looking to, and how can brands evolve to provide for those needs. Effectively trying to help ask the community to guide brands in terms of what they can do to prepare us for a better, but certainly a different future. So the response that we got from the community was truly overwhelming. I mean, in 12 days alone, we garnered 142 ideas from across the globe, just reinforcing how sort of like the global issue and the response that we got from it. Those individuals, 77 of them in total, came from 35 countries across the world, and we've chosen 10. I'm going to speak you through some of those winners today. In terms of the results themselves, when we looked at them in a bit more detail, it's clear that they sort of clustered into certain thematics. The primary thematic, I think, still very fresh and raw for a lot of us, certainly, relating to hygiene. So sort of what can we do to fight back against the germs, and how can products be adapted to better help us on that with that. The second thematic, also a really large one, was that of social responsibility. So what can brands be doing to help guide us, to educate us, to create better awareness around what we're labeling sort of more correct lifestyle behaviors. Following that, well-being. So, and not well-being totally related just to sickness, but more holistic well-being and self-care, and how can we come out of this in a more rounded sense of self and wealth. And then interesting to see also, even amongst a creative community with sort of unhinged thought processes, even there we saw some suggestion around regulatory standards and practices that could guide us in the future. I think just to draw your attention also to the sort of span of industries that we had coming through. I mean, ranging right from commercial spaces through to residential properties, the things, the products that you need in between them, and then really everything in between that. So quite a bit on delivery, distribution, transport, obviously still quite a lot happening there, retail, education, healthcare, really, really diverse range of markets that our creators had in mind when they were creating the ideas. try and, on the next slide, just hinging this on our own pause, play, pass forward framework rather. Of course, given the creators, we did receive many ideas, in fact, that sat in the sort of fast forward space. So tomorrow, quite futuristic in nature, potentially requiring slightly more investment or more significant lifestyle adjustments in order for those to come to fruition. But certainly a lot of those ideas that we received, and you'll look at the bottom part there, just sitting in a really like present day reality, not requiring massive amounts of sort of change or adaptation to existing product innovation lines or services, but really sort of more tweaking and adjusting as we go into the new norm. So I think it's really just encouraging for brands to see that, you know, we're not talking about reinventing completely the wheel, but just taking what you have and tailoring it to the new tomorrow. Another framework that we looked at also was just to sort of plot it, of course, researchers, we love a quadrant. So just to plot it on sort of two axes really. And the first one being a sort of continuum between self-care, so focus more on ideas that the individual would need on a personal level, right through to a more community-focused sentiment at the other end. And I mean, really encouraging to see that, in fact, the bulk of ideas swinging towards that community focus. And we're talking about crowds and talking about the fears and how do we navigate that with our own safety in mind, but it's a sort of joint struggle. So a lot of that focus on the community element. And then the second axis there really being a sort of bridge between human and technology. The technology ideas really quite intuitively like dependent on technology and software and infrastructure and development, whereas the human ideas less so. I'm going to take you through some of these ideas right now. So we'll just work through a few based on the quadrant, starting first in that sort of human community focused one, but two lovely ideas to share with you here. The first one being, in fact, a campaign developed with McDonald's in mind, that McDonald's could use to reinforce sort of social responsibility, some hygiene, taking their own brand assets. And we see Ronald McDonald there, we see their products with the campaign, really just reinforcing, you know, better behavior, social distancing and awareness. And I mean, Thomas did mention earlier, but just to highlight here that this is exactly how it comes out of the community. So this has not been rendered by us at all. This is the concept as it was formed by one of our creators and submitted onto the portal. So truly it shows the caliber of creator that we do have on the platform. And then another idea, a really cute, heartwarming idea, I feel, is the Wingspan Backpacks. So also related to social distancing, an idea that's sort of imagining in schools or somewhere like festivals, fun environments, where you would don a sort of backpack with a creative wing set on it that would help you sort of like keep a safer distance away from other, but not make it a scary thing, just bringing a bit of a fun element into it. Moving on to the next quadrant, so still within the human space, but looking at a bit more like self-care here. Transport, of course, like a hot topic in terms of how do we navigate those really congested sort of like trains and buses and all of that. So a really lovely idea envisaged here for a brand like Kleenex, specifically focused on hygiene, taking actually something that would exist in the current product line and sort of formulating an idea around having a sort of disposable hygienic wipe positioned onto bus railings or whatnot that individuals could use to keep themselves safe and in so doing keep others safe. Another idea, the bubble wrapper disinfectant, this sort of acknowledging that, of course, Yuri mentioned like online deliveries and, you know, we're seeing a boost in that anyway. With products coming into your home from the outside world, how do we keep them safe? How do we disinfect them rather? And how do we keep ourselves safe in our home? And the idea that we would take existing bubble wrap and sort of inject a disinfectant into it. So when a product arrives in your home, you'd simply pop those bubbles. It would encase the object itself, and then you could safely bring it into your own home. So really, like I said, some of these ideas hinged on existing product lines and just slight adaptations of them. If we move now more to the sort of like technological side of things, I'm still in the healthcare space, or the self-care space rather. Two ideas here. The first one being related to like personal residences and how do we keep those clean. I've got the UV Clean Bot here to share with you, taking an everyday appliance such as a vacuum cleaner really, and just adapting it. I mean, we had quite a few ideas come through, in fact, with UVC lighting and the power of that to disinfect and eradicate germs. So making that accessible to everyday homeowners and, you know, even cleaning agents. So a lovely idea there. And then another one, this body vital monitoring tattoo. So slightly bit more futuristic, but the idea here is sort of also acknowledging the difficulties that we faced with a virus that has a longer incubation period, where you don't necessarily have visible symptoms of it early enough to keep others safe. The idea being that, you know, we'd ultimately be able to come up with a tattoo that could give you that early warning sign when your vitals start changing towards a more negative direction. You would get that early read and you could get attention quicker. And then the final quadrant being community focused and technology. The bottom right, just an idea adapting really from the Google Maps, but this at a personal level. So the idea being that individuals would plot, like they would plot their own locations, and if you now needed to navigate, walk to the shops, walk to the streets, even walk within a mall, you'd be able to see how congested certain areas are in terms of actual human foot traffic and intentionally steer yourself away from that so as not to contribute towards unnecessary crowding in public spaces. And then a very cool, very futuristic idea coming in the space of a sort of it's a virtual office space idea here. So acknowledging that certainly platforms like Teams that we're on now and Zoom can take us so far in terms of communicating with one another and bringing us closer to our colleagues. But there's certainly we're certainly missing a sort of more tangible element. The idea being that you would don a sort of goggles, and it would very literally place you in an avatar form in your office space alongside your colleagues, and you could engage more directly and intimately in that virtual reality. And then just in terms of an idea that I think really rounds it off quite nicely, this again, reminder, this comes exactly like this from the community. We've not sort of pulled several ideas together. This is a single submission, and it takes a sort of retail setting and really combines all the quadrants quite nicely, thinking about how someone would enter a store, what sort of measures we'd have in place in the store to ensure hygiene and social distancing, what sort of reminders, education, all of those things throughout the store, and even on exit, how we could keep one another safe and guarded in this truly crowded but unavoidable situation. And I mean, this, just to end, this not being the only idea that came through like this, there were certainly several other ideas that came through that really took a crowded setting and broke down all the different components of it and how we could more safely navigate that together. Thanks. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you very nice, Heather. I think it shows very, very well and very nicely what the power can be of crowdsourcing ideas from all around the world, and what the power not only of creativity but also of diversity can be in ideation. So thank you, Heather. Thank you also, Yuri and Thomas, for giving us an insight into what the current situation of consumers is, how creativity works, how creative crowdsourcing works, and how you as a brand, as a company, can use insights and creativity to come up with solutions for their current issues, but also to already start to strategize for a post-COVID-19 world. So we are very much looking forward to your questions. So Katja, any questions coming in from our audience?
Yes, thank you, Tom.